My son was diagnosed with asthma after collapsing. My parents called him attention-seeking and chose my niece over him. I canceled their mortgage and all bills I'd been paying. Now they're desperate. I, 36F, never thought I'd be writing this post, but I need to get this off my chest. 3 days ago, my 7-year-old son collapsed during his soccer practice. 1 minute he was running across the field, the next he was on the ground, struggling to breathe. I've never felt terror like that before. His coach called 911 while I held my son, trying to keep him calm despite my own panic. The ambulance arrived in minutes, but it felt like hours. They suspected a severe asthma attack, though he'd never been diagnosed with asthma before. In the ambulance, while they were putting an oxygen mask on my son and starting treatment, I texted my parents. They live about 20 minutes from the hospital, and I thought they'd want to know their grandson was heading to the ER. My husband was out of town on business, and I was alone and terrified. My text was simple. Mom, they're taking him to Memorial Hospital. Possible severe asthma attack. I'm scared. 20 minutes later, as the doctors were still working on stabilizing my son, my phone pinged. My mother's response. We're busy with Margaret right now. These kids and their fake emergencies, always wanting attention. He's probably just tired from running around too much. Margaret is my 14-year-old niece, my sister's daughter. She's a sweet kid, but she was at their house for a regular weekend visit, not for any emergency. I couldn't believe what I was reading. My son was hooked up to monitors, with doctors concerned enough that they were discussing admitting him, and my mother was dismissing it as a fake emergency? For attention? I didn't respond. I couldn't. I focused on my son, who thankfully started responding well to treatment. The doctors diagnosed him with exercise-induced asthma and admitted him overnight for observation. I slept in a chair beside his bed, my phone silent because I couldn't bear to look at that message again. The next morning, my son was doing much better. The doctors were discussing discharge plans when my phone rang. It was my father. Your mother wants to know how the drama queen is doing this morning, he said, chuckling. Is he ready to go home yet, or is he still putting on a show? I was speechless, then furious. He's been diagnosed with asthma, I said coldly. He's on medication and will need an inhaler from now on. Tell Mom thanks for her concern. I hung up before he could respond. What my parents don't seem to remember is that I pay for quite a lot in their lives. After my father lost his job 5 years ago, and they were about to lose their house, I stepped in. I've been paying their mortgage, their car loan, their cell phone bills, and their utilities ever since. They're both in their early 60s, and my father found a new job eventually, but it pays much less than his previous position. I've never held this over their heads. I've never even mentioned it since I started doing it. I just set up automatic payments from my account because they're my parents, and I love them. Or I thought I did. That afternoon, while my son was napping in his hospital bed, I opened my banking app and canceled every automatic payment to their accounts. Mortgage, car loan, utilities, cell phones, all of it. Then I texted my mother. Since my son's medical emergency was such an inconvenience to your schedule with Margaret, I've decided to stop inconveniencing you with my financial support as well. All payments have been canceled. You and Dad are on your own now. She called immediately. I didn't answer. She called again. And again. Then my father called. Then my sister. I turned off my phone. My son was discharged that evening with medication and an inhaler. My husband had flown back and met us at home. I told him everything, showing him the texts. He was as appalled as I was and fully supported my decision. The next day, I turned my phone back on to find 27 missed calls and dozens of texts. My parents had gone from dismissive to angry to panicked as they realized what I'd done. My sister's texts were mostly confused, asking what was happening. Apparently, my parents had called her in a panic about their bills being cut off, but hadn't explained why. I sent my sister a screenshot of my mother's original text and my father's call. She stopped texting after that. My parents have now moved from panic to begging. My mother sent a long text about how she was just joking and didn't realize how serious the situation was. My father left a voicemail, saying they would lose the house without my help, and how could I do this to them after all they've done for me? All they've done for me? Like mock my child during a medical emergency? It's been 3 days now. My son is doing well, adjusting to using his inhaler. My parents continue to call and text, alternating between apologies and guilt trips. My sister called once more to say she understands why I'm upset, but asked if I could reconsider because our parents really can't afford their bills on their own. I haven't decided what to do yet. Part of me wants to reinstate the payments because I don't actually want them to lose their house. Another part of me thinks they need to face consequences for once in their lives. Am I overreacting? Should I turn the payments back on? Or should I let them figure it out themselves? Update 1. It's been a week since my last post, and I want to thank everyone for their advice and support. A lot has happened, so here's where things stand now. First, my son is doing well. We've had a follow-up appointment with a pediatric pulmonologist who confirmed the exercise-induced asthma diagnosis and adjusted his medication. He's back at school and even returned to soccer practice. As for my parents, I took some time to think about what many of you suggested. I decided to meet with them in person, but on neutral ground. We met at a coffee shop near their house 3 days ago. I arrived first and chose a quiet corner table. When they walked in, I was shocked by how stressed they looked. My father has visibly aged in just a week, and my mother's usual perfect appearance was disheveled. They sat down, and before I could say anything, my mother burst into tears. Not the manipulative tears I've seen her use before, but genuine, body-shaking sobs. My father just stared at the table, looking defeated. When she could finally speak, my mother said, "We've been horrible. Not just with the text, but for years. We don't deserve your help." I was stunned. This was not the reaction I expected. My father then explained that my canceling the payments had forced them to really look at their lives and choices. They'd been taking me for granted, assuming I would always bail them out no matter how they behaved. The thought of losing their house had been a wake-up call. "We were terrible grandparents in that moment," my mother admitted. "And we've been terrible parents to you for longer than I want to admit." I asked them about their comment regarding my son faking for attention. My mother's face crumpled. "I was jealous," she whispered. "Margaret was showing us pictures from her school dance, and I was enjoying being the center of her attention. When your text came, I was annoyed at the interruption. It's inexcusable." My father added that they've been living beyond their means for years, knowing I would cover the gap. They never had to face consequences for their spending because I was their safety net. I told them how hurt I was not just by their dismissal of my son's emergency, but by years of similar behavior that I'd always excused or ignored. I explained that their response had finally made me see a pattern that had existed for decades. They listened without interrupting or defending themselves, which was a first. After talking for nearly 2 hours, we came to an agreement. 1. I would reinstate the mortgage payments temporarily, but on the condition that they meet with a financial advisor to create a sustainable budget. 2. They would need to downsize within the next 6 months to a home they can actually afford on their own. 3. The car loan and other bills would remain their responsibility. 4. They would both attend family therapy sessions with me to address our relationship issues. 5. They would apologize to my son and make a genuine effort to be better grandparents. They agreed to everything without argument, which honestly surprised me more than anything else. The next day, they came to our house with a handmade card for my son and a sincere apology to both of us. My son, being 7 and naturally forgiving, accepted immediately and showed them how he uses his inhaler. The look of shame on my mother's face when she saw the medical equipment her grandson now needs was palpable. I've reinstated the mortgage payments as promised and scheduled their first appointment with a financial advisor for next week. My father has also started looking at smaller homes in their area. My sister called to thank me for giving them another chance. She admitted that she's always known our parents favored her, but never wanted to acknowledge it because it benefited her. She's promised to be more supportive and to hold them accountable from her end as well. I'm cautiously optimistic, but also realistic. Decades of behavior patterns don't change overnight, and I'm prepared for setbacks. But for the first time, I feel like they're actually seeing me, and their grandson, as people with valid feelings rather than just extensions of themselves or sources of financial support. The most important thing I've learned from all of this is that sometimes it takes drastic action to break unhealthy patterns. I don't regret canceling those payments, even though I've partially reversed course. It was the wake-up call we all needed. I'll update again after they've met with the financial advisor, and we've had our first therapy session. Thank you all again for your support during this difficult time. Update 2. It's been about a month since my last update, and I wanted to share how things have progressed. First, the good news. My son is thriving with his new treatment plan. He's adjusted to using his inhaler before soccer practice, and his coach has been incredibly supportive. We haven't had any more scares, thankfully. As for my parents, there have been both steps forward and backward. They did meet with the financial advisor as agreed, and the meeting was eye-opening for them. The advisor created a detailed breakdown of their finances, showing them exactly how unsustainable their lifestyle has been. They were spending nearly twice what my father brings in monthly, with my contributions covering the difference. The advisor helped them create a realistic budget and recommended they sell their house sooner rather than later. My parents initially agreed, and my father even contacted a real estate agent to assess their home's value. Then came the backsliding. Last week, my mother called to tell me they'd found the perfect solution that wouldn't require them to move. Instead of downsizing, they wanted me to continue paying their mortgage for just a few more years until my father can retire with full benefits. Then they would sell and move to a smaller place. I reminded her of our agreement and explained that continuing as we were would only enable the same problematic patterns. She became upset, saying I was being cruel and that they were too old to start over. When I held firm, she hung up on me. The next day, my father called to apologize for my mother's behavior. He admitted that she had been the one pushing to maintain their current lifestyle, while he was actually relieved at the prospect of downsizing. The financial stress has been weighing on him heavily, and he's tired of depending on me. We had a long, honest conversation about their marriage dynamic and how my mother's spending habits have affected their relationship. He confessed that they've been arguing about money for decades, but he always gave in to keep the peace. My financial support had temporarily masked these issues, but never resolved them. As for the family therapy sessions, we've had 2 so far. The first was tense and unproductive. My mother was defensive, my father was mostly silent, and I left feeling frustrated. The therapist, however, was skilled at identifying the unhealthy patterns in our communication. The second session went better. We discussed specific incidents from my childhood where I felt unsupported or used by my parents. It was painful but necessary. My mother cried several times as she began to recognize how her behavior had affected me. My father acknowledged his role as an enabler who never stood up for me when I needed him. The therapist has given us homework between sessions, specific communication exercises, and journaling prompts. I've been diligent about completing mine, and surprisingly, so has my father. My mother is trying, though she sometimes falls back into old habits of deflection and victim playing. On the financial front, I've maintained the mortgage payments as promised, but I've made it clear this is temporary. I've also been transparent with them about exactly how much I've been contributing to their lifestyle over the years, nearly $38,000 annually. Seeing that number in black and white was shocking for all of us. The real estate agent has shown them several smaller homes and condos in their price range. My father seemed genuinely interested in a 2-bedroom condo close to a park he likes to walk in. My mother was less enthusiastic, but didn't outright reject the idea, which I consider progress. My sister has been more involved as well. She started having frank conversations with our parents about their expectations and behavior. Last weekend, she even called me after witnessing our mother make a passive-aggressive comment about my controlling behavior regarding their finances. My sister actually stood up for me, pointing out that I had been extraordinarily generous and that our mother's comment was unfair. This is a significant change in our family dynamic. As for my relationship with my parents, it's still strained but improving slowly. They've made more effort with my son, calling him regularly to ask about school and soccer. My mother even attended his most recent game and brought his favorite snack for afterward. Small steps but meaningful ones. I'm maintaining firm boundaries while still offering support where appropriate. The financial advisor has been an invaluable neutral third party, helping them understand that their situation isn't sustainable regardless of my involvement. There are moments when I question whether real change is possible after so many decades of unhealthy patterns. Then there are glimpses of genuine effort and awareness that give me hope. The road ahead is long, but at least now we're all acknowledging that there is a problem, and that's the first step toward healing. I'll update again after they've made a decision about selling their house. Thank you all for your continued support and advice.